it's now going to start getting serious. Roy just radioed through on Chaska to say he hit a submerged log. We've got half a metre under the keel. We just hit one too. Santorini, who we've been following, ran aground. We're now entering probably the most dangerous part of this journey.
Throughout the day and every morning we have to check the front because we gather so many logs overnight. I've already cleared it about an hour ago. There were huge logs, much longer and bigger than this. Took me a while. Anyway, in an hour we've managed to pick up another log.
It's a baby one.
That's a baby, yeah. And there's a few twigs and things. Gonna miss this place. It's just so beautiful. The sounds, if nothing else. We've seen elephants and various types of monkeys. I don't know, it's just gorgeous here. So motoring again. It's only about 13 miles to our stop. Just motoring along until we find the anchorage that we're looking for, which is next to the Oxbow lake. So we'll get in the dinghy, go and have an explore. A lot of debris in the water today.
Roy just radioed through on Chaska to say he hit a submerged log. There's a little ferry terminal back upriver, and as I was about to record this, to tell you this, we just hit one too. I think it must have hit the prop itself and bounced off the hull. It's just a slight thud. Didn't kill the prop, but there is so much debris in the water. I mean, mainly big logs.
We're doing around 6 knots. We've got the current with us.
In Santorini, we're actually doing 6 knots, believe it or not, and these guys are overtaking. Funny thing is, Espa seems to get some momentum going, so she gradually creeps up to 6.1 knots. But obviously these guys like displacement boat, and yeah, I need to alter course to let them through.
Yeah, I haven't seen much so far, but look how close we are.
It's very difficult to control the boat, obviously, with the current. It's pushing it left and right. On the straights, I'll try and use autopilot. Knocking backwards and forwards by 10 degrees, but it is much easier to hand steer, to be honest.
Motoring. Hopefully when we get back out into the sea we can get a little bit of sailing in. That would be nice. Yay!
Here we are at the next stop, 15 miles on from our last anchorage. This is Oxbow Lake, which according to Liz is an abandoned meander. No, it's not. You see, she's telling me off. I'm going to get her to talk about it because I think she studied this in geography at school. Graham on Artemis 3 has already attempted to get to Oxbow Lake and said it's a bit overgrown. We've all planned to go down there together at 3 o'clock because he said it takes more than 2 dinghies, or at least 2 dinghies, to get through, to help each other through this overgrown bit.
This is so pretty. And this is the smell of green. It's this gorgeous, like, kind of verdant green smell as we come through this tributary. We're on our way to the Oxbow Lake. Very thin tributary still left from the original river that's going to take us there, but apparently it's overgrown. We'll find out. Look how pretty it is. No nasty palm oil. This is all forest. Engine off.
You can drive through.
Yeah?
Oh, you reckon?
Yeah. Apparently we can drive through. If we can't, We're going to blame Songlines 3.
Nice bit of guidance there by Songlines 3, who waited underneath the overgrowth there, guided us through, said we could actually use the engine. But the only issue I found was trying to film and navigate at the same time. It was quite difficult. Liz said, just put the camera away. We said, no, we've got to show them what it's all about.
The Kinabatangan is a meandering river, but what does that exactly mean? Well, after a river has poured down from a mountain or a small hill towards the sea, it'll often end up on flattish land known as a floodplain. At that point, it will slowly wind, loop, bend and turn this way and that as it lazily makes its way towards its estuary. The curves of that lazy river are known as meanders, and they are created as the river erodes the sediments comprising an outer or concave bank and deposits them downstream on an inner or convex bank. And that's why we're sticking to the outer banks as we go round corners, because that's where the water is deeper. An abandoned meander is one of those bends that has been cut off by its stream. This might happen after heavy rainfall causes the river to burst its banks, looking for the quickest way forward. Eventually, that abandoned meander is completely abandoned by the river and becomes isolated on the plain. Then it's known as an Oxbow Lake. We're venturing up a narrow stream towards an abandoned meander right now. Chances are it'll be a full Oxbow Lake by next year. Eventually, delta-like features block either end of the abandoned meander to form a stagnant Oxbow Lake, separated from and independent to the river. Over time, and without new water flowing in from the river, most Oxbow lakes dry up and become just indentations in the floodplain.
Get paddling then, Liz.
Move that foot. Let's get this out there.
I'll do something useful. Here we are in the middle of Oxbow Lake. Liz and I were saying it could almost be the pond at the end of an English country garden. And I imagine those early Victorian explorers would come to the tropics and be inspired by a setting like this and take some of those samples back and plant them accordingly so that it represented something like this. Of course, without the blistering heat, which we have slight relief from because there's a big cloud at the moment. Kim's got the right idea. She's got a nice umbrella on. And yeah, very peaceful.
We've reached the end of the line, the end of the Oxbow, and I'm really interested to see if this is actually silted up into land yet, marshy land.
I suggest you go and climb ashore. Go on, give it a go. Jump out the dinghy.
That's not going to happen. No, it's not. Look, it's not quite marsh yet. I expect in there it is. I expect in there it's probably the edge of it.
Just on our way back out, and this is the last little bit that gets a bit complicated, and didn't spot this when we came in. It's absolutely fascinating. One great big creeper tree, and it's got a big bough that comes across there, and hundreds of vertical, what would you call them, Liz?
I don't know.
There's bound to be a name for them, but it's fascinating because it's created a complete semicircle, almost a wall of branches, vertical branches coming down.
So my theory is that this is a parasite tree growing over the original tree. And we saw this in Thailand with your mum and dad.
Another splendid night's sleep on this magnificent river. Been sleeping really well actually. In fact, I think this is some of the best night's sleep I've had in a very long time. It's just, so obviously for obvious reasons, it being so peaceful, but also being at anchor is quite safe, apart from all the flotsam and jetsam that floats down the stream. Aside from that, the holding is really good. There's no wake, there's no fetch or anything, no squalls, none of that at all, none of the things you associate with anchoring at sea. So we're really benefiting from this beautiful tranquil setting. Sadly, it is our last day today on the lake. We're now heading out to Dewhurst Bay, which is our exit out of here before we go around the easternmost tip of Sabah. So just in front of us is Songlines 3, and apparently they hit a log when we were up at the village at the top end of the river, and they said that they've got vibrations in the prop or the shaft when they go over a certain amount of RPM, so they're actually holding back. Fortunately, we have current with us, so we're still almost tipping 6 knots, and I've dropped the revs right down, so this is not a bad thing. We're saving on fuel. Not a nice thing to have to contend with though, I'm sure that's quite worrying. So you see these local fishermen buzzing up and down the river, and quite often you'll see them sort of nose into the mangroves and they put down traps. They use red and white tape which they hang from the trees to indicate where their traps are. So they buzz up and down morning and evening emptying the traps. Lovely freshwater fish, which Liz and I think we had in a restaurant in Sandakan the other week. Rather tasty it was too.
Saw an orangutan in the tree, so we're really stoked about that because they're pretty rare these days. So it looked like he was just resting in the V of the tree halfway up, well, kind of 2/3 way up the tree, but we spun around to come back and have a look, but he'd started descending the tree already, so we caught another few glimpses of him when he was just heading down towards the ground.
We're now down in the wetlands, so everything's much flatter. There's more marshy swamp as we saw at Oxbow Lake, and the foliage has changed as well. There's a lot more palm, very thick, dense, dark green palm all along the sides here. It feels a bit flatter. Very excited for Jason and Lee for seeing that orangutan. I caught a tiny glimpse of it when Jason radioed through, but I didn't see much. But it sounded like, according to Lee, he was fast asleep in a V, and then he got disturbed and climbed down the tree. So I'm really pleased that they saw that because they didn't see elephants, but they have spotted a wild orangutan. 10 out of 10. So we've just done a couple of long stretches, long straight stretches, gave us a chance to overtake Songlines, but of course both of us overtaken by Santorini. This is the first time that we've actually been able to say all 6 boats in a line. Interesting little junction coming up. It's called Dewhurst Bay Junction, and it's a crossroads in the river, and we're going to take a sharp right. So that's ZZ taking a starboard turn to go overland. Fortunately, satellite data is correct, charts are not.
I've got the satellite things and waypoints in it. I don't know if you want me to go ahead of you or if you're confident with it, over.
I'll just push on through and see how.
Of course, Santorini have a bigger draft than us, and they're a bit worried because Roy's come through to say we're in 6 foot.
So just a reminder, we draw 2.3 and we're going to be following you guys. Over.
I'll tell you what's going on is that we've got less than a metre under the keel. We've got half a metre under the keel. Santorini, who we've been following, they're about 10 centimetres slightly deeper draft, ran aground. There's a bit of current here as well pushing us forwards. We've now got songlines who are shallower draft in front kind of guiding us through. It's been a consistent half a metre under the keel for the last 500 metres or so. So we're just taking it.
We're over 3 metres here now.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Okay, thanks for that.
Over 3 metres they're saying. And the other problem is that there's a very shallow patch on the starboard side. Although the river's wide, obviously this is the mouth of the river, so a lot of the stuff that's sand, mud, is coming around the corner and it's all built up around here.
Well, that was interesting. The boats at the front are talking while we're trying to very carefully get through this shallow bit, and they didn't quite know where we were, and they were saying there were 7 metres. There wasn't 7 metres here, there was only less than 2 metres, so yeah, we're all right.
Well, I think we're clear. We've stayed at about 9 metres. This is the estuary, so this is where the sea comes in and the river comes out. We are now officially out of the river and almost back into the sea. This is a very big bay, this one. We can see beach for the first time, if you can call it a beach. But what is interesting are the amount of huge logs washed up ashore there. We're moving away from spring tide, so I guess it was the spring tide that's dumped them there to sit there until the next spring tide, when the mouth of the river will pick them up and take them back down the river, ready for the next group of yachties to bash into. Right, we've anchored at Driftwood Point, which is just over there, open sea. One thing we did notice though as we were going through the river was the steering cable, I think it's come off the quadrant, so it sort of jumps a bit. So that means I've got to empty out the lazarette. It's one of my favourite jobs. I love going in the lazarette. If I could, I would live there. Well, I spared you the footage of me taking all the shit out because it's a messy job and it's very boring, only to discover that the cable hasn't slipped at all.
Oh, why is it jerky then?
I don't know, it's not loose either.
The wheel just
Strange.
feels jerky.
It does a bit, doesn't it? Any ideas? I've got an idea. Beer. We've just had this evening's net and we're now at anchor at the mouth of the estuary. This means that we are probably the furthest east we've been so far, and of course what this also means is that we're now exposed to the Sulu Sea. Therefore we are on high alert, which means that we have reintroduced the night watch system, and we also have a patrol boat that's going up and down. I haven't seen him for the last 10 minutes, but he is going up and down with flashing blue lights. It's now going to start getting serious. We've had good fun for the last 5 days in the river, but the next few days are going to be not fraught, but you know, we just have to be aware that we're now entering probably the most dangerous part of this journey.